Call the order of the Pleasant Grove City Council work session this evening on November the 19th, 2019. And welcome all who've joined with us, along with, we have 4 of our council members here. Diana will be joining us shortly. And we welcome our city administrators that are here with us. We'll now go to our first item and have our city administrator introduce our care discussion.
Mayor, Council, if you remember last week we had discussion about our Communities That Care, this program that is partially funded by the county, but in essence an employee that we would hire as the city to oversee it. County would help pay for a portion of that employee's salary, and there's a program that has an infrastructure to it. So when we talked about it last week, I was not able to articulate what that infrastructure was. So I've invited Heather Lewis from the county, who oversees the other communities that do a Communities That Care program. So she'll walk us through what the program is, and then once she's done, then I'll get back up and talk a little bit about the numbers, the financial implication for the city, and some of the things in the contract that the council asked last time. So with that, I'll turn it over to Heather.
Welcome, Heather.
Yeah, we just wanted to see your smiling face again.
Oh, thank you, and yours as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me back, honestly, because there are a lot of questions and it's got a lot of components to it, so I understand wanting to be clear before you jump into something like this, absolutely. So, as Scott mentioned, Communities That Care is a framework that has been being researched and evaluated for over 30 years to show its effects. And I have some of those research articles I can share with you. I also brought
Heather, is that
yes, ma'am.
research like within the county, nationwide?
It's nationwide, it's
Okay, gotcha.
national.
So this is a national program?
It is, absolutely. And in fact, it's international.
Oh,
I didn't know that until just last week. We had a training of facilitators and found out that they are in Pakistan and Africa and all over the world.
And is it
So-
known by the same name?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. They have translators in those countries that do the translating for our facilitators, so I was really surprised, actually. So the program has 5 phases, and the first phase is getting your coalition together with the members of the community. Like we talked about before, it's Pleasant Grove people that will make up this group, this coalition. And so those people are going to know Pleasant Grove best. They're going to know the resources that are already available, the gaps in those kinds of resources, and so, be able to better select and kind of prioritize what needs to be done. And then based on gathering data, the SHARP survey data, different databases that we have access to, we pull all those and figure out what are the most impactful risk factors that are happening in this area. What are the things that are really getting in the way of these kids being able to make healthy choices, and then finding things that can address those issues. And so it's not necessarily that we're going to target substance use specifically. For example, if you find that, we've been looking over the SHARP survey, and we found that one of the highest risk factors still is depressive symptoms. And so we're not going to put a treatment program in for depressive symptoms to talk about only substance use. We're going to need to find something that works with mental health issues and incorporate that. But the research that I talked about shows that the risk factors that they've identified are risk factors for a child to become involved in substance use, in criminal behavior, in teen pregnancy, risky sexual behavior. All kinds of different behaviors come as a result of not having the right things in place. And so what we want with CTC is to find out what those things are, substance abuse or otherwise, and find resources and programs and things that we can do to help those kids deal with those and arrest those issues before they start, hopefully. So that's kind of that whole piece in a nutshell. I asked the other coordinators in the other areas. I heard that one of the questions was, well, if it's a city employee, why don't, if it's run by the county, why doesn't the county just hire this person? And so then once you guys, if if you say yes and move forward, your city employee is going to be housed here, but why wouldn't they be housed at Utah County? The contract is there and all that good stuff. Well, your Pleasant Grove person is, like I said before, they're gonna know what's going on. They're gonna have a passion. Like if I started one in Lehigh, I'm gonna be more passionate about it because that's where I live. You know, someone from Pleasant Grove is gonna hopefully know the area and be passionate and committed to the youth here. And so that partnership is what really makes it work. And so while we support and walk the coordinator through the process of those 5 phases, the human resource aspect of it is still left to the city. The choices, the decisions, how that's all run is all left up to the city. And I asked we have 4 other CTCs in the county, and I asked the coordinators in those places to give me a brief synopsis of what they do and what that looks like, and if they feel like the county is kind of, you know, overarching and controlling. And so I'll just let you have that. You can just read it later, so we're not taking up time, along with those resources. But are there specific questions, other questions that you have that I can answer, or are there concerns or?
Not necessarily concerns, just some clarifying questions. How long is the contract?
The contract is actually yearly, so I
It is
talked to
annual.
Scott. It is annual. I talked to
Okay.
Scott. I usually do it on a fiscal year starting in July. He mentioned that it might be easier for Pleasant Grove to do it on a calendar year starting in January, and we can do that. But my contracts are yearly, and they're not, you're not tied to spend, you know, to be in this for a set amount of time. Like if you, after the first year, I'm crossing my fingers and hoping not, because we know this takes time. But if you decide that it's not going to work, or, you know, there's no more funding to meet the match or whatever, it doesn't have to move forward after that. It can be ended. Although, like I said, I would hope that, you know, we've seen that it takes probably 2 years from the first phase to the end of the second phase with, you know, getting the board together, going through all the data, getting a program in place, implementing it, and then evaluating it on the on the end. So, you know, it takes time to see results, and we would hope that you would give it that time.
And what other cities in the county are participating?
Eagle Mountain, Saratoga Springs are partners, and so they have a coalition there. There's a coalition in Provo. There's a coalition in Payson, Genola, Santaquin, and Goshen are all lumped into one. And then American Fork was our newest one. They just signed on last year. They just started last year.
Okay. And how long has the program specifically been in Utah County for?
The longest one has been here, the one in Payson has been going for almost 9 years.
Okay. And so at any time, we could opt out of the program? It doesn't have to, we don't have to wait for the calendar year or the fiscal year, we can opt out at any time?
There is a notice requirement, but it's not long.
Okay.
I just looked at the contract. It's like
wanna say it's
60 days
60
or
days,
something
yeah.
like that.
And right now, the agreement by the county to pay half of the salary, is that indefinite at this time, or that will also be evaluated on an annual basis?
It will always be a certain set amount. I talked to Scott about this year because when we made the arrangement, it was going to be longer. And so I put a little bit extra in. But typically my portion is 16,000, so 13,000 for the employee position, and then 3,000 for capacity building. So, you know, meeting materials, travel, training, things like that. So, 16,000 from my end, and then a $10,000 match from the city. And I found out that the Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health, who is our funder, will also contribute $10,000 a year for the first 3 years. So maybe we find a program that we want to implement. We've got extra funding to do that as well for those first 3 years.
And that's
So,
specifically for each city that wants to utilize those funds?
Yep.
Well, and the first year would be fully funded by the county. So they would give $20,000 for the first year to help us get this program going really on their dime. And $4,000 for, what,
Yep, 4,000 for capacity
for
building.
capacity, I would say incidentals, but capacity building. So the first year is $24,000, which would cover the cost of the individual fully. And if we had to get them a computer or things like that, that's what that $4,000 for. And then the ongoing would be $13,000, which would get not, maybe a little bit more than half on the salary. And then we would have $3,000 a year for travel, training, whatever.
So our max contribution annually would be 10,000, is that right? Okay. But could we guarantee the position, it is a $20,000 a year position? So you're saying, could
Yeah,
your
it is.
funding
So we-
change annually?
So we decide on what we're going to pay the individual as a city.
Oh, okay.
So if we were to pay them $15 an hour over the 20 hours a week, that's $15,600 over the course of a year.
Okay.
Now, that's base salary, that doesn't include FICA and the other taxes, the payroll taxes and things that we have to pay. So when we get into the second year and it's we expend up front and then we turn around and submit invoices then for reimbursement. But in essence, then we have $13,000 from their money at our disposal in order to help pay for that person. So if for some reason we spend more, so our match at 10,000 plus the 13,000 from the county, if we spend more than that 23,000 on salaries or whatever, then we're on the hook. But we control that. I mean, if our person's, if we have to tap the brakes a little bit on hours because we're running out of budget, then we have a flexibility to do that.
And if
So
that
what
was
are-
the case, like, I would really want to help. I would not want to see,
It go away.
yeah, I would want to do
So
what I
what
could
are
to
other
help.
cities paying? Do you know?
I honestly don't have any, I don't get involved with how much they pay them, or I just let them
Do you know what most hours those positions are working?
20 hours. My Payson lady works 29, but the others are working 20.
And does the position have a little bit of discretion? You said it's not 100% substance abuse, but if they see a need that's specific to our community, can they kind of focus on that?
Absolutely. It's really targeting, like I said, it's really targeting the risk factors underneath. And so if, when you're pulling the data, the things that are the most relevant that need to be addressed are the things that we want to be targeting, those the most significant, impactful things. And if that's family conflict, if that's, vaping, if it's,
But they'll be working for a board, so we'll have this board of community members, and they'll be the ones giving this individual direction on what they want them to
Okay,
work on. So they'll be a city employee, and they'll be sort of supervised by us, but really, this board's gonna give them direction as to what they want them to work
that's
on.
true. So there's a key leader board, which would be maybe Scott, the mayor, the police chief, higher ups that can make decisions. And then the community board is the community, PTA, moms, school people, that will be doing the busy work, the bees, the worker bees, gathering the data, looking at different programs, doing the research, surveys, whatever. So, the coalition coordinator doesn't make the decisions. It really does come from the whole board.
They just are more organizing?
Running, facilitating the meetings and being the leader, providing leadership.
And so will they have the opportunity, because it seems like we have a bunch of different boards and organizations happening here. We have Hope Squad, Choose Kindness, the Golden 8 Club, that's just specifically at the high school, and then just kind of different outreach groups. Is the point to kind of bring these all together into one?
They have done that in other cities,
Have
like
they?
the Hope Squad. They work together in tandem to, get where they need to be and share information back and forth. But like Be Well Pleasant Grove
Yeah.
is a perfect, I really see those CTC and the Be Well merging and
Okay.
becoming one unit.
Okay.
So, yeah, really it is trying to pull those resources so you're not duplicating, you're not, recreating the wheel, but really looking at what's already here and utilizing that. And then if there are gaps, finding how to fill in those.
Okay, got it. Okay, awesome, thank you. Thanks for answering all the questions.
You bet.
Hey, board, anybody else have anything else for Heather? I have one thing for you. Have you been talking to Lyndon at all? Where's Lyndon now?
Here's how it works. I find a champion who wants to make it work, and the door's open. So far, I haven't found someone from Linden that is excited about it. But my first champion was actually John Hawkins. That's how I found out about Pleasant Grove and kind of the interest here. But I mean, if there was someone who had heard about it or wants to hear about it, I'm so happy to share information. But as of yet, we haven't bridged that gap.
Well, and if she finds that champion, then I think where you're headed, Mayor, is we could partner with them, right?
Yes.
And so at that point, we could amend the agreements and whatever to accommodate that. 'Cause
Based on population. That's how Payson, the South County Coalition does it. It's based on population, and each city contributes based on how many people they're serving. And so that's totally an option. Eagle Mountain, Saratoga Springs both split it, so they're both doing 5,000. And then she covers both cities, so it's absolutely doable.
Okay, all right.
So if you've got somebody in mind to have me talk to, send me,
Well, like,
or I'll
no,
start digging.
I can
if
talk
you
to the
think that-
mayor. I mean, that's, so anyway,
Let's do it.
I'll get him in a
Let's-
chokehold and
I'll-
say, you need to look at this. We need to split this down. Okay, so.
I think that's great.
Okay.
I love
Yeah,
it.
that's great, Mayor.
All right,
Absolutely. Any other questions? Anything else I can answer?
okay.
That
Right.
was really helpful. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thank
Thank
you.
you guys for having me back. I
Right.
appreciate it.
Thanks,
Aye.
Heather.
And we welcome Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you,
Thank you for showing up tonight.
thank you.
Okay,
Little
well,
bit of traffic and.
a little bit of traffic. No, there's,
Accident.
oh, really?
So Mayor, moving forward, we'll have the interlocal agreement on our agenda on December 3rd,
Okay,
and then we'll start advertising for this position unless there's concerns. I mean, first year's covered by them budget-wise, so we're not having, we'll have to create a budget because we front the expenses, but the actual funding of it will be covered by them, so.
okay.
Are we good? Okay.
Now move on to our next item, and Scott will present this, the one we've been waiting for.
Well, we have some guys
And-
that are,
This
they're
is,
ready to go here.
We want to start on Lynn's yard first.
So on our deer mitigation, as we've been talking about what that looks like, there is some hoops that we jump through, paperwork that we fill out. I've already started with our first step, which is called the Certificate of Registration, the COR. So if they refer to a COR, that's what they're talking about. This has been filled out and submitted to DWR. The next steps on what we do, I'm going to have these gentlemen explain what the process is moving forward, and then I'll stand back up and we can kind of tidy up with whatever. I mean, I already have it kind of in my mind how this rolls out, but I'll make sure that we're on the same page with that. So we have Rod Nielsen and Heber Shepherd. Did I get that right? And Rod, are you doing the? Okay, good. Or whoever, just come on up.
So I'm Rod Nielsen with the Division of Wildlife. I'm actually filling in for Wes Alexander, who Scott has been working with. Wes is out of state at this time, so he asked me to come and fill in for him. I used to be involved with the urban deer program, so I think I'm still pretty much up on everything. So if I don't have all the answers, bear with me and I'll find out. As Scott explained, you have applied for a COR. I checked on that on the way over here tonight. That has been approved, so you're good to go to that point. The next step now is it is the responsibility of the city to develop the plan of how you're going to run the program. So it's going to be lethal removal, and there are a couple of options that you have with that. You can use what a lot of cities are using in the area, which is archery equipment to lethally remove the deer. The other option that you have is trapping and euthanizing on site. So you'd use a live trap, bait the animal in. Once it was caught, then you would put the animal down at that point and move on at that. But that is totally up to all of you as how you want. What the division has done is and it's quite extraordinary. This does not happen very often. The division has given you the rights to manage the deer that are inside your city. So how this program is going to look is going to be decided right here in this room, how you want it to run. But once the application has been approved, the involvement, and then once you develop your management plan, the involvement of the division is going to be very minimal. About the only thing that we will be involved with after that is you'll need to provide us with CWD samples and a yearly report, and that's pretty much the way it runs. I don't know if you have any questions.
I'll come up with you.
All right, sure.
Let me talk about what's rumbling around in my head.
Sure.
So American Fork just adopted their control plan about a year, maybe 2 years ago. Linden just did theirs about 6 or 8 months ago. So I have American Fork's control plan, and I believe they do it separately. I think American Fork is more of an archery option, and I think Linden's is more of a bait and trap option. So we'll grab both of those and have a discussion on how we want to do that, because there's a cost to all of that. Now, both of them contract out with a third party, Humphreys, who they do archery in the area. I think Provo also uses Humphreys. And then, in essence, we would pay them for the disposal of the deer. So whether they're going to send out the archers, take the deer down, and then haul it out, or they also have the traps, and they provide that option as well. But there is a cost for every one they get, and then there's a charge to us. So I've had an initial discussion with Humphreys, Brian Cook, I think is his name, with Humphreys, that kind of oversees this, to kind of get a flavor of what that's all about. But before we get into the contract on how we're going to manage it, we do have to create the control plan. So once we get the control plan created, then we're required to have a public hearing on the control plan. And then after we have the public hearing, we can adopt the plan. At the same time, we can enter into the agreement with our third party who's going to take care of the situation. Now, just one note, and Rod, you can help me to get this right. Whenever we do this, the only time that we can do this mitigation is between August 1st and December 31st, right?
That's correct.
So like January, February, if we have deer running around, we can't do anything about that.
Post-rut.
So those dates are set by the Big Game Board, and that's the dates that they've come for. They do not like us removing deer. So all of our hunts, whether it's, all of our big game hunts, none of them can start before August 1st. And the reasoning behind that is they do not want to have a bunch of orphan fawns, calves, whatever, for dealing without. They don't want orphan fawns running around, especially in the city. So they've determined that August 1st, the majority of the newborns that are born in June will be old enough to survive after that point. And then December 31st, I do not know, and I apologize, I do not know the exact reason why, but that is the end of the, I believe it's because, same thing, the animals are pregnant. They do not want to, after that point, putting stress on the animals.
The only time we could use the control plan is August 1st to December 31st.
That is correct.
These other control plans, I take it the number 2 option, is it really the bait and trap and then they take them off-site and euthanize, or do they actually euthanize them, like you said, on the spot?
That, I would have to check with Wes on that, but I believe that they have to be euthanized on site just for the fact, any chance of them getting away. We used to have the trap and relocation program, and they've done away with that with concerns of spreading CWD. So I would almost safely bet that they would not want to see those animals moved from site, that they would need to be euthanized on site.
Scott, did you get any indication of costs for each one?
So that's the missing piece right now is based on the archery option or the trap and euthanize, I need to have those costs so that when we decide on our control plan, So we'll have both options available with the cost, so the council can make that decision. And that's Brian Cook with Humphreys, is because they're the ones that will be charging us for that. DWR is not involved with that per se, so.
Right.
Would we have Humphreys come?
Yes. Yeah, I would invite him to come and talk through that as we discuss the control plans and then the budget implications. And Linden City, to my understanding, they're due a trap and euthanize, but the way it's set up is that the residents, if they want a trap at their house because they have a deer problem, then they pay for the trap and they pay for the euthanization. So the city's cost is going to be minimal because they're, in essence, putting it on the resident to say, look, if you have worries and concerns about deer on your property, then you'll pay for the disposal of the deer.
That's interesting.
So that's been their approach. I think American Forks is more the archery option, and we're going to take care of it, and the city's going to pay for it. So,
I have one question.
Yeah.
And maybe this is a Humphreys question, but what does the trap look like? And is that,
so that
I'm
is
interested
that's a
in the
Humphreys
trap.
question, and
Okay.
Oh, come and talk.
So is it possible to get some information on the other cities and what their costs are and how their experience has been?
Yes. So what I'm going to do is, because we've already missed the window this year, like, we're not going to have something
in place
like
for
in
next year?
two weeks. And if that we did, then they would have just a couple weeks to kind of do this. So, and our December agenda is already getting very full. So in January, we'll bring back the control plans with Humphreys, and we'll have that discussion. We'll have the costs all situated. We'll get the feedback from you on the direction you want to go. And then we'll put the control plan together, and then we'll have our public hearing on it. So this, in my mind, is January, February. When I filled out the certificate of registration, I put the effective date as August 1st, 2020. And the reason being is it's a 3-year deal. And so I didn't want to put it December 1st and then have it expire right in the middle of a season of this. And this is working with Wes, with DWR. He's saying, look, I recommend you do it because you're not going to be able to hunt them anyway in March, April, May, June, July. So start at August 1st, get your control plan adopted, get everything lined up, get your contract situated with your third party, get that all done in January, February, March, and then August 1st, it goes into effect. So that's the timeline that I have in my mind.
Are there any cities, it's Rod, right?
Yes.
Is there any cities that have urban permits or that cities could sell? Or is it just always contracted through Humphreys?
So, no, as far as I know, there's no cities have issued permits just to residents. Is that, yeah, so as far as my knowledge, no. And how can I say this? I don't have an opinion either way, but I sometimes get the feeling that the cities feel like they have to go with Archer or with Humphreys. You do not, and like I say, I'm not abdicating either way for him.
Right.
He's been doing it for quite a few years, so he does have a good track record. I can say that much, but there have been some cities that have looked. I believe there's a couple cities up north. I believe up in the Logan area that use their police department or their animal control officers to do it. So that's another option. I believe also up in the Farmington area, I believe that they were using a different contractor. You know, of course, Humphreys can't be the whole state, so.
Right.
I believe that they have another contractor, but as far as the cities issuing permits to residents, I'm not aware of any
Okay.
that are doing that.
One more thing, I need you to know that you have the greatest job in the history
I
of the
do.
world.
I'll agree with you.
Since I was a little boy, I wanted to work for the Fish and Game, Wildlife Resources. And so
So what's your problem?
I picked this, I think. I'd much rather be with him.
Yeah.
Well, congrats, and thanks for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Scott, can you also find out what other cities are doing as far as, I mean, costs, how their experience has been, but also if, what the options are besides Humphreys, like in our area?
Yeah, I mean, everybody I've talked to in Utah County is Humphreys, and that's
just
kind of
do
where
that.
I was headed.
I thought Highland was getting specific people in their city, archers in their city.
I can ask.
Okay.
I think, my general feeling, Mayor, Humphreys is gonna be expensive.
They are not cheap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and,
We need to look at something.
we've gotta look at something else.
All our options.
All our, yeah. I
So
think,
I'll figure out up north who people are using to do their third-party stuff, and we can have all those options. So if that's the case, we might not want to actually invite Humphreys to, or at least to that meeting, as we discuss what
yeah, I think
those
we ought to look
options
at
are.
all the options before we go. I think it'd be good to get kind of a number from Humphreys,
yeah.
But
Well, I guess I'm basing the number based on what American Fork has. I'm assuming we would be similar to what American Fork has.
we'll
Similar
probably,
to what
we'll probably be
Linden
higher.
has. It could be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's based on, hey, you have more deer, so it's cheaper, or you have less deer,
Yeah.
so it's cheaper.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
And part of it depends on how many are taken out. I
Yeah,
mean, that's
for
probably
sure.
the
That's it. I'm
overriding
sure it's per
factor.
head. Yeah.
Is how many were actually, taken out of the city. So that, we'll move forward on that, but January will be the next that we'll have some information on that. And our next meeting, I'm hoping to have everything we need so that we can really get settled on kind of how we want to do it, so.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay, our next item, number 3 for our work session is report on density and a new density map. And,
So I'll start here.
okay,
Mayor, if that's okay. And I'm going to have Daniel speak here for a few minutes, and then I'll stand back up as we talk about density. So there's 2 things going on. A few years back, Ken Young, our community development director at the time, put a report together that showed the percentage of units in our city, whether they're multifamily units or whether they're single-family units. And I believe the number he had was 32% or something in that neighborhood. So Daniel's been asked to refresh that, so he's been doing a lot of work in the last 3 weeks to research all the different developments that we have. Because I think when Ken did it, I don't know if he left any of his work, but at least Daniel's set it up now so that we can just update it on a yearly basis and stay on top of it. So we don't have to go back and do a bunch of research. So he has the baseline figured out. So I'm going to have Daniel report on what it looks like now as far as our percentages. And then one thing we talked about a few months back that the council asked us to do was to create a map that we'll go over and we'll show different parcels in our community that we've been approached as staff regarding multifamily housing. And so this was me and Tina and Daniel. We've met probably 3 or 4 times. We've looked at this map, and we would like to make recommendation to you as to the use of these properties and whether we should have an increased density, whether we should keep it zoned as it is, or because some of it is already zoned multifamily, some of it is not. But we have had proposals or people calling Daniel and asking on pretty much about every vacant parcel of property that we have. So we'll talk about some specific parcels and what our recommendation is and how to proceed on that. But before we get to the map, we'll have Daniel talk about his research.
I'm gonna try to speak as clear as I can, but if I mispronounce something or you guys are not getting what I'm saying, please let me know. I will really appreciate it, and I'll go over it again. So, I made kind of like a format that from now on, we're just gonna keep it updated from, I mean, we can do this every year, every 6 months, or every single time a new multifamily project comes in, we can just fix it right there, okay?
You're good.
Well, of course, what's more important, food?
Do I have something?
So,
Oh, excuse us for just a second here, Daniel.
I'll pause.
You're good, Daniel.
You good? Okay.
Thanks, man.
So what I created is something super simple. In reality, what the staff and what I did, we went to the extent of calling every single development that we knew. So, for example, we call Mayfield and say, hey, Mayfield, how many units do you have? Well, this number. And then we check and see what we have in our files and put it right there. So that part that you guys are looking, that's the pretty picture, okay? But in reality, what we did is like I said, we put a list of every single project, and we verified it on this date that they had exactly that many number of units. And you know, this project came as I had a question from one of you guys. He sent me text message, say, hey, what percentage do you have? Do we have as multifamily? And I had no idea. I did a quick and dirty study. It took me 1 hour, and I came with a number that was way off. But now with this is going to be on the files of community development. Every single, like I said, every single month, 6 months, we can update this. So again, we went and contact every single development. We did a lot of field trips, and we counted everything that is 3 attached units or more. So duplexes are not counted, okay? Because duplexes are not considered multifamily. But everything that has 3 units or more, we counted them. And we even put the kind of like the address and how many units they had.
Were duplexes counted last time or not? Do you know?
No,
Okay.
no, because in the planning jargon, yeah, I always want to use that word. In the planning language, a duplex is not multifamily. Okay, so anyway, but based on that, we came out with this. This is the total number that we have right now. 4,213 units, okay? Either built or approved. Built or approved, okay? Some of them, for example, are not completely built or not even the boulevard. You guys remember that's McKay Christensen's property? Okay, so that's 267 units. That hasn't been approved yet. The site plan, we're working on the plat, but that's what's going to happen. That's the density that, because we created an ordinance that allowed 23 units per acre, multiplied by the acreage that they have, and they come out with this number. So we kind of like anticipate that already. We're there, okay? Now, based on that, and this is going to be kind of like a disclaimer, because for the total amount of single-family dwellings in the city is hard to count. In 2020, we will know a better number because that's when the census is going to happen, right? So how do we come up with a number? Well, I worked with Marty a bit and Scott Wells, and we saw how many utility connections we had. And because we haven't classified by residential, multifamily, or something like that, so I had a huge list, and I started like counting down and cutting and stuff like that. So we came out with a number. This is the total of residential connections that we have. That also includes multifamily, okay? So for single-family dwellings, we came out with this number right there. And if we compare that with the total existing multifamily units that we have a total percentage of 36% of the units, livable units in Pleasant Grove City are multifamily. We increased our number from 2013 by at least 4%. So we have built more multifamily than single-family dwellings. Okay. Now that is going to be available for you guys to see. Okay. I count a couple of other numbers, data that I put right there. Accessory apartments, 237, and 109 mobile homes.
That we know of.
That we know of. That we have records of. Okay. And you know, when we talk about affordable housing, we'll touch on this a little bit more. But I throw those numbers right there. Now, based on this, because numbers are boring sometimes. Right? I mean, data is good, but we think we see numbers and some of us get headaches. So what we did is we created a map. Or zoning map. So, right now, we can see our zoning map like this. I'm gonna send everybody a link to this map, so you guys can even play around with this. This is great. These maps is made out with layers, like a pancakes, like stack of pancakes. So you can remove pancakes. You can remove, for example, the drawing of parcels, and you can see a little better. And we created a layer that shows, I'm gonna remove this one, that one.
Wow.
I'm gonna remove the zoning. And what I'm gonna show you guys is, this is great. I'm so excited about this. That's where all the multifamily in the city is located. So what I did, I mark every area, and we can even zoom in, and I put a name of it. Okay? The greatest thing is you can click on it, and it will tell you right there the name of the development. Oh, I get chills. I love this. The name of the development, we get the acreage, the density that it was allowed, and the total number of units. Okay? So, and we can play with this. Just a couple seconds ago, I turned on the labels. It didn't have labels, so we can actually see the developments that we have allowed. Can click on that one. Do any of you guys know what the name of this one is?
No.
I call it a question mark. Yes. This is Pleasant Springs.
Italian. Oh, Pleasant Springs.
Click at the bottom. Pleasant Springs. Acreage 2.38, density 20 units per acre, total units 252,
Wow.
and so on.
This looks like 2020 right here. Looks like we're entered into 2020.
Yeah, this is a great map, and so on, and we can take a look at everything like that. Some of those areas, and we have like I say, we mark little areas like this. So this is within a single family, but this is something that has been there for quite so many years, and you can click on it, and it will tell you how many total units we have in that little piece of land right there. So it's going to be a great tool, and hopefully,
That's my hood.
Was that Diana's house you were just showing right?
Yep, that was my
Oh,
hood.
okay.
Oh, okay. So hopefully we just keep updating this map, okay? Every 6 months, every year. So next time one of you guys give me a phone call or a text that says, hey, how many multifamily we have? Ooh, that'll be so easy to get the number.
So
and
did the
to see
number
it.
surprise you?
A lot. I think, so I was talking to Scott, and he said something, so we've done our job to provide multifamily in the city. I think we have. I was discussing this with the director of community planning. He's the director of planning for American Fork. I was discussing that with Adam, a good friend of mine, and I told him, hey, Adam, how many multifamily do you guys have in the city? He said, I don't know, because no one really knows that number, right? And I told him, hey, I guess what? I did a project, I'm going to tell you how much we have. At that time, I had only 34%. I told him we have 34%. And it really, is surprising the amount that we have.
American Fork?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's American Fork. Yeah, I was talking to.
Fork.
Because they've been going like crazy
More, oh, yeah.
on our border over there.
Yeah. So again, I was talking to him during the bus trip that we were doing. We went to check the VRT. Yeah. So this is a great tool. It's going to be there for all of us to see from now on. And so again, we can click on it, we can check, we can play with it, and it will be good to have it there. Okay.
So in your planning science, what's a healthy, growing, thriving community?
That's a great question. There's not such a thing like a percentage of how many, like a recipe, like you need this percentage and that percentage. I don't think there's like a recipe. I think it's more about the location. And if we take a look at it, we kind of like cluster them all around the grove in that area.
I think what this shows is our high density is near our commercial, which is a good place for it to be. You get back up into where the single-family homes are, we don't.
And we're still a
Correct.
bedroom community up there.
Correct. So
Yes.
whether that was
And
the
so
mission.
The State Street's kind of this nice division between kind of where the hustle and bustle is with the density and the commercial, and then all the single-family. It's not a perfect line, but, I mean, that map really kind of illustrates that.
So I remember one meetings that I had with the past mayor, and he mentioned something to me. I remember he said, "Hey, I want everything north of 3,300 to be single-family dwelling," and we have doing a good job doing that. And we can see, it's clear to see how every development is around State Street or the Boulevard or in the Grove area. So
And someday, on some list somewhere, I would love to have a conversation about the transitional zone around in the downtown village area. I would just love to have a conversation about what we really want there.
okay. So that's, like I said, that's the map. You guys will get a link to that, and you will also have a copy of this. And again, this is a picture of how it is right now, but that will be updated from time to time, okay? But knowing that that's information that is readily available for everybody now.
Well done.
Thank you, Daniel.
Okay, I'm going to have Daniel pull that map back up, and we're going to talk about some specific properties here. So we'll give him a second. Pointer's working.
Yeah, what percentage do you want to have?
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove that layer, and I'm gonna add just click on a different one right there.
I don't want.
Okay. So this is the discussion that Tina and Daniel and I have been having, is really these vacant pieces of property, what they're zoned, and what, at least as staff, that we look at and think, okay, would it make sense to have housing here or not? So what's in the yellow is already zoned housing. This is the Proctor property. It's zoned mixed housing. The maximum is 12 units an acre. There was a few years back, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, we actually had a public hearing to rezone that and to rezone it to commercial. Through the public hearing process, the Proctor family showed up. They preferred that it stayed mixed housing, and so we kept that as mixed housing. This over here is Joe Salisbury. So Joe Salisbury, his projects are both townhome projects. So he's can stay within the 12 units an acre, with the understanding that he needed a little bit of tweaking on some of the design guidelines and things like that. So that was something that you addressed a month or so ago. So these are already kind of in process. There's nothing going on here. There's a church that will eventually be going in here. The LDS,
It's on that, by the way.
they've purchased the property.
The church did purchase the
Yes,
property.
so if you go on the parcel map, it shows that they own 5 acres there. And so I'm sure plenty of people have approached the Proctors over the last few years. I'm thinking they're telling everybody no, at least for the time being. So those are already, in essence, set. Where we have the green are properties that we have been receiving people coming in and proposing density projects in the green. So where we have kind of we have dotted green, we'll get back to that, but where we have kind of the hard green line here, we had somebody come in, they were proposing about 60 acres. I think they were going to purchase a lot of this here. They wanted over 20 units an acre, if I remember right. Where Fuzz from. And so we get approached, and we as a staff want to be able to tell people, look, we've had this discussion with our city council. Our city council is not going to entertain a rezone. So we can just tell them no upfront as staff, so that, in essence, we're looking for direction from you to be able to say that. So we're recommending here, that if we get approached on a multifamily housing project, we would like to be able to tell them no pretty much out of the gate.
Okay, which one is the Sam White's one?
Right here?
Yeah.
So this is zoned BMP, which is kind of light manufacturing. So you have the school here.
Oh, okay.
We've been approached a few times about putting some housing here. Our recommendation is no. Let's keep it as light manufacturing. That probably makes more sense for that area. But anyway, we've been approached. Anything with frontage on North County Boulevard, as staff, we're recommending stays commercial and that we don't have housing there. The only thing that could maybe change that is if somebody brings in a master development. So if somebody knocks on our door and says, hey, we want you to consider this, we need a little bit of housing, but we're gonna bring X amount of retail and all this stuff, and it's one big project. As staff, we would kind of vet that and take a look at it, and if it's something that we feel has viability, then we would have them run through the process. If it's something we look at as staff and say, I don't think so, then we would just be able to tell them, no, I don't think our council's gonna entertain that. So that's, we would like to stick with the zoning. We're not recommending any zone changes in regards to this here and this here. This here is interesting property. So this is Water Gardens right here. We have the railroad tracks going through here. This is what prevents this from being a viable retail area.
It's a destination.
It would have to be a destination. And I don't, with the amount of property there, I'm a little hard pressed to think, I mean, a big box isn't gonna locate there. There might be some that could be feasible, but.
It's zoned now residential, right? Or what is it zoned?
So the frontage is zoned commercial.
But
The back here is zoned rural residential, which is half-acre lots. So that's probably not reasonable.
Union Pacific has already said that it's like almost impossible to get across there, right? I mean, to give us access?
Yeah, so the access, and that's why it's,
The access is at 1300 west.
yeah, the access is coming off of here, or it's
We're
coming through
winding
here.
through, yeah, Water Gardens.
Which is what we have on other, I mean, between 600 and 2000 west, 1300 west and 2000 west.
So what we're recommending as staff is that we leave this zoned how it is. But if people, we would entertain a proposal that would be a mixed-use development. So if somebody came in and said, we'll take this all down and we'll rezone this, where we would say, okay, we still want commercial on the frontage, but if you want a little bit of density back here, we're willing to have that discussion. This is a little bit of a difficult piece, I think, to develop, but
Well, especially because it's in a neighborhood.
yeah.
Scott, why couldn't they develop, if I can get this pointed over here, maybe I can't. It's gone. You know, this piece right here is all very, very similar. Backs the tracks. There is a little bit of commercial right here. I think it's where the Quick Quack is. Someone could do two things, I think. Number one, they could potentially come off this road, right, and develop this into the half-acre lots.
Yeah, can you zoom in a little bit on that, Daniel? That's kind of how you had it. Because there is master plan road to come in through here to connect in here.
Okay, yeah, and so,
And sorry, Todd, this road's master plan to come in here and then come up and connect right here.
Correct.
it's not, it doesn't come across.
Well,
here.
we can't, this intersection right here is a nightmare.
It is.
Probably should not been approved. I mean, you drive it probably as much as I do. And so really, the entrance will be more up here into this property.
So you could develop something commercial right here with the road coming up here and down, right? Is this all owned by the same individual?
No, it's multiple owners.
I think we have a different owner here, and a different owner here.
Okay,
But
so
look
you're
at-
recommending that we keep it,
We just keep it zoned as is, but if a developer walks in with a mixed-use project, that we would entertain that and we would bring it back.
Look at this, you can turn on the parcel map and you can see actually the different.
They wouldn't get the hard no up
Look at Daniel
front.
with the parcel map overlay.
yeah, I think that's, your thoughts are exactly what mine would be,
Okay.
Scott, so.
So this piece right here, this is where the Payless, I don't know if Payless is still there, where the Payless used to be.
Brain power.
The Brain Place.
Nail salon.
Yeah. So this is,
We all know
this
something.
property here right now is zoned housing. And our recommendation would be to actually rezone this so that the frontage is commercial and the back could be potential density. What is it right now? It's commercial, but it's a commercial zone that allows housing in it. Ideally, we would have a project where it's commercial on the frontage and housing on the back, but
Commercial.
right now, technically, Daniel, if I'm right, they could come in and propose a housing project that would take the whole thing down. And the zoning's in place, and so we wouldn't be able to say, well, no.
This one is exactly the same zone as the one where Joe Salisbury is developing. This is CS2. It's exactly the same zone.
I think I like commercial on that piece.
Okay, so I think we'll take a look at it. It might make sense to have housing on the back end of this. But we'll take a look, but that's one thing as we're looking at that, it's like, we probably need to rezone that and do that up front before we get a proposal from somebody. So we'll put that on our list to address the zoning of that.
Why would it make sense to put residential on the back of that?
Because generally speaking, when we get commercial, it's gonna be more on the frontage like this is here, unless we had a big box. But there's, for somebody to put a commercial, I mean, I guess if they were gonna,
If they put their back lot or their back entrance into their.
Right here.
And then did the frontage towards State Street, as you pulled in, you would pass all of that strip.
yeah. This, actually, I mean, this could be better served as office and retail up here, office back here. So it doesn't have to be housing, and that could be one that we could just zone the housing right out of it and say, okay,
I would.
you know,
But
this
how-
is,
how
we're
quickly
gonna
can
want
we
this to
do
be
that?
kind of commercial sales sub-district.
How can
so.
we do
Can
that?
that be, how quickly can we do that? So if
So
someone doesn't
once
come
we,
in the
once
next-
the city files an application, it puts a stay on it. So if somebody came in after we filed our application, which we could do tomorrow, right? And somebody came in after the fact and said, I want to do this, we have what's called pending legislation, so it would prevent them from.
But does it go, it would go through the proper process?
Yeah, but then we run it through planning commission and back to you.
Very good.
And, you know, and we'll need to talk to the property owner to,
Salisbury.
Yeah, actually, when we were talking about Jill Salisbury, I showed you guys a map that it showed both properties. Say, hey, what we do here is gonna affect that one as well.
Yes, I remember. All right, zone back out.
okay? So I think that kind of covers the pieces.
And I would like to also verify that personally, I agree that North County Boulevard, all of that should be commercial.
Yeah.
But how quickly can we get the application? Because what if someone came in tomorrow and we don't have the
Neil can do it
application
when he
in?
gets tomorrow morning. Is it as
Actually, there's
simple as
not some
filing the
button that
application,
he
right?
needs to push
He'll do
right
it
now.
tomorrow morning.
Be a
Okay,
heck no.
thank you.
All right, the Sam Whites, should we talk about that one for a minute?
Well, okay, so a couple things. We're about out of time, so I don't know
Oh,
if we want to
you're right.
continue
Sorry.
at the end of council meeting. There is a couple more things, I mean, there's a couple more things I want to talk about, and so if we want to just continue the discussion at the end of our council meeting, we can do that.
We do that? Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, Scott. I would like for a motion to adjourn from our work session.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's work session.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.